here's a Scared for Real's Legacy Special.
Hey, it's Chris O'Neill.
Adam Perry.
1984 was a banner year for a lot of films, but we picked a couple that we wanted to both focus on, and we're going to start with Adam. I don't think this movie needs an introduction, but it's legendary.
Yeah, well, I heard once on a TV show, and I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with me, I'm sure you will, but there was an acronym. They said Black Sabbath created heavy metal and Metallica perfected it. So I'm going to put my own little spin on that and say that Bud Abbott and Lou Costello Meet Frankenstein created the horror comedy. Ghostbusters perfected it.
It's one that could be debated, that's for sure. We're here to talk about Ghostbusters.
And that's
We're not going to debate on the first horror comedy of all time and which one is perfect.
Right.
Ghostbusters is probably the most popular.
Hands down the most popular.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Let's just focus on that. Ghostbusters is 40 years old this year, and it's the most popular horror comedy of all time.
Really most successful.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. With we're a couple months away from the newest entry in the Ghostbusters franchise with Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, which I'm super excited about. I loved Ghostbusters Afterlife. I love that they're continuing the Ghostbusters story, which started right here in 1984, the iconic, the legendary Ghostbusters, written, directed by Ivan Reitman with Harold Ramis, Dan Aykroyd, starring Bill Murray, Sigourney Weaver, Harold Ramis, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, Annie Potts, you name it, Rick Moranis. It is one of those movies that it was a blockbuster. It was a lightning in the bottle movie. One of those movies that it's never going to be done again or outdone, or the cultural impact within the comedy horror community that this thing, it crossed lines. It crossed pop culture. Growing up, I was the biggest Ghostbusters fan. You have those conversations, when you were a kid of, if you could join the Ninja Turtles or the Power Rangers or the Justice League. I always wanted to be a Ghostbuster. It is in my top 5. It's you always talk about if you were on a desert island and you could only have like 5 movies. Ghostbusters is for me in that 5. It's a movie I can watch over and over and not get sick of. Such a fantastic movie. And
can you remember when you first watched it and how you reacted when you first saw it?
Much like in the last episode, Toxic Avenger, my first experience with the Ghostbusters is Saturday morning cartoon with the real Ghostbusters. Mm-hmm. I was hooked from there. And then, that led me into watching the movie, which was way more appropriate than Toxic Avenger. And, again, for me as a kid watching the first movie after being first exposed by the cartoon, seeing it in real life was just like, whoa.
Right.
Whoa. Like, it made it real. And that's the charm of Ghostbusters is there's so many concepts to this movie that are just so fantastic, but the way Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis and Ivan Reitman wrote this movie, you can believe it. Again, just the concept of ghosts alone is the forever debated topic. Is there really ghosts? Isn't there ghosts? Is there a spiritual world? Is there an afterlife? You watch this movie and you believe that ghosts are real. And then on top of that, with the technology and the research that they put into the equipment, the proton packs, the traps, and the storage containment system, based in nuclear science, it makes it believable, and
right.
It just and when I say that it's one of the greatest horror comedies of all time, and what it does similar to Abbott and Costello Meets Frankenstein is that the ghosts, Gozer and all the villains, they are treated 100% seriously. And then you have the comedic aspect of Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, and Harold Ramis in there to for the comedy, where, again, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, like Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman, they are real. There's no joke about them. They're not a gag.
Yeah.
And then you have Abbott and Costello playing off them, and that's what Ghostbusters does.
Right.
Brilliantly.
And it doesn't, just like a lot of movies of this nature, it doesn't take itself too seriously, which makes it good.
Yes.
It really makes it
again,
good.
You're talking about 3 guys running around with
4.
Well, yeah.
Don't forget about Ernie Hudson.
No, you could never forget about Ernie Hudson. But again, it starts with the 3 of them.
Yes.
And then Ernie Hudson. But we'll talk about Winston Zeddemore, played by Ernie Hudson, which was the most important part of the team is him.
Yes.
Because where you have the three scientists, the kind of really smart guys that, no one really can relate to, then you bring in the everyday guy of Ernie Hudson, and now you feel a part of the team.
Right.
You feel like anybody can be a part of this group. Anybody can be included in the Ghostbusters.
Yes.
And that is what makes Ernie Hudson so important to the Ghostbusters.
Like you said, he is the most important part because he's us.
He's us with yes, yeah.
No, it's a phenomenal film.
How about you, Chris? Your first experience with the Ghostbusters?
Well, I actually saw it in chronological order. I tried watching the cartoon series after I saw the two movies and couldn't get into the cartoons. I used to browse the comic books at the comic book store that we had locally in our hometown. Didn't really get into the comics, but love the first movie, and I'm one of the few that actually enjoyed the second one as well.
I really like the second one as well.
Why compare? They're both good movies. Unfortunately, I've seen the other movie concoctions. I was not a fan of. Afterlife to me was like Dial Destiny, all of these other, just grabbing for the sake of nostalgia. It's like, don't need to do it again. But I can see why people liked it, but to me it was just a nostalgia grab. I didn't care too much for Afterlife, but focusing back on the original Ghostbusters, it was just so eye-opening, and it was just like, wow, the ghost in the library, that what a way to start off the movie,
Yeah.
I just wish I was old enough to have seen that on the big screen.
Right.
Because like you, I saw it on HBO because my parents had HBO, and one of the Saturday night premieres. Remember HBO used to do that? And that's how I first experienced Ghostbusters. I don't think I ever rented it because it was on HBO all the time, but I still have the 2 combo DVD pack of Ghostbusters 1 and 2 that they put out, gosh, almost 2 decades ago. Mm-hmm. I enjoy that. I still pop them in from time to time, and it's just, though everything clicked with the Ghostbusters. Those first 2 Ghostbusters movies, I'm glad they didn't make a third one. Unfortunately, they did years later, which, again, I understand why it was successful. To me, it was just a forced money grab, but most of these franchises are. After a while, it kind of runs out of steam.
These are my opinions. No, and I disagree with it. I thought Ghostbusters Afterlife, because they never had the opportunity to do a third one for whatever internal
I think
reason.
They were talking about it for a while.
Oh, they were talking about doing a third one right after the second one was made. And, there was issues with Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis for a long time, and it took a while for Bill and Harold in particular to, resolve their differences. And, Bill Murray, from what I read, he's a very manic person.
Quirky.
In like one second he'll be all in, and the next second he won't show up and dismiss it all. So that is really where the lack of the third movie comes from, because what you're talking about, the third Ghostbusters movie, there was again, they wanted to do one right after the second one. Issues happened over the years. They kept trying to bring it back up, couldn't really get it together, and then they do in 2009 they do a video game.
Yes.
And the video game was fantastic, and the video game was played as if the third
about that video
as if the third movie was made.
So it literally had. They said there was like plots or elements of the third one, if it had been made, were in the game.
It was a third movie.
Really?
The movie plays like a third movie. So even from the intro.
What is it about? I never got to play it.
Basically, there's a it kind of like Ghostbusters Afterlife. It evolves around Ivo Shandor, the guy who had created the Gozer cult.
Okay.
All right, and that in Shandor, there's an exhibit to him in one of the museums in New York City, and it becomes possessed, and he tries to return and bring back Gozer and everything else. And the game takes place in 1991. So this would have been right after Ghostbusters
2 years
2.
right after, yeah.
Ghostbusters 2.
Right.
So, and again, everybody returned. Harold Ramis, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, and Bill Murray to do their voices for the game. And the game plays out, again, like a full third movie. And that led to them, again, talking about doing an actual third movie in present time. And then, unfortunately, we lost Harold Ramis. And that derailed everything. They went with the reboot.
With the women.
I've never watched that one.
You didn't? No.
And
you're not missing much. The
reason being, and it's not has nothing to do with female Ghostbusters, because Ghostbusters Afterlife has female Ghostbusters.
Right.
I have no problem with female Ghostbusters. I'm going to say that right now.
Because wasn't Egon's granddaughter? Wasn't she?
Yeah, she's the head of. She's the head of the Ghost.
She's the head of the Ghostbusters,
the new team.
Yeah.
So.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. So, so again, to reiterate, it has nothing to do with the cast in the movie. It has nothing to do with that it was an all-female team. What I didn't like and why I refused to watch it is they erased the entire canon and lore of the Ghostbusters to remake this as their own. And to me, it was almost sacrilegious to do that. And then I saw the trailer. I was still open to see it. And then I saw the trailer, and the movie just looked terrible. And I didn't want to waste my time and money.
But they made cameos in it.
I know they made cameos in it, but I mean, so I put it. All right, so let's talk about another team for a second. And when I talk about Ghostbusters 2016, I always say this. All right, take the Ninja Turtles. Say we're going to make a brand new Ninja Turtles movie.
Which they've done how many times?
All right, but now your Ninja Turtles they look more like toads. All right, and we're going to call one Picasso, Rembrandt, Dali, and Van Gogh. All right, and their colors are going to be brown, black, yellow, and fuchsia. And those are the Ninja Turtles. These are the Ninja Turtles. These are the only Ninja Turtles you're going to accept, and you're having that crammed down your throat. Would you buy it? No, exactly.
The audience really didn't buy this one.
And they didn't buy Ghostbusters 2016 either.
No.
So now you jump a couple of years after that, and you get Ghostbusters Afterlife, the final movie written and directed by the legendary Ivan Reitman, with his son Jason attached to it.
Yes.
And who's doing the next one. And what I loved about Ghostbusters Afterlife, it continued the lore of the original. It continued the story. They used the original Ghostbusters perfectly. They kept them out of it until the very end. Obviously, you had the ghost of Egon throughout the movie, but that's, that was plot. That worked. So I don't think they relied as much as you perceive it as nostalgia, as in they just used what was already the Ghostbusters lore to continue a new story. If the original Ghostbusters were in it the entire movie and it was all about the original Ghostbusters, I could see that. But I think they used them perfectly. They used them right at the end just to give you that, okay, now it's all connected. The original Ghostbusters are back. And again, for me being such a fan, for one last time to see all four of them, even though it was a projected image of Harold Ramis standing together at the end of that movie, it was a tearjerker, literally. And
I will say it's better than Dial of Destiny. I'll be fair.
Well, I think way better than. I haven't even seen Dial of Destiny. Dial of Destiny's not getting a sequel. But again, with, and I know we're supposed to be talking about the originals, but with Afterlife, I fully invested in the new Ghostbusters team with the podcast kid, the Egon's granddaughter and grandson, plus Paul Rudd now in it.
He's like the Annie Potts of the
kind of, yeah. So it was a fitting for what. Even though we never got the traditional Ghostbusters 3 that, maybe the fans really wanted, it was a good Ghostbusters 3. And I'm really excited to see what Jason Reitman does with Frozen Empire now. Because now he can kind of, all right, we brought the universe back. Now he can kind of do his own within that universe. So.
See, unlike... we just disagree on this because I didn't even think a second Ghostbusters needed to be made, but I went with it, and I was surprised. I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I did watch Afterlife. I was hoping that I would enjoy it, but there's a lot of, it was just, to me, it was a nostalgia grab, and again, the movie was a huge success, so I'm in the minority here, but I was fine after those two Ghostbusters. I didn't want a third one. Right. I didn't want a second one. I was pleasantly surprised. I actually enjoyed it. I mean, it was slightly less than the first one, but I still rewatch it from time to time. But you can't redo perfection, and they try this all the time in Hollywood. Just make something else up. Indiana Jones, they could have had a female Indiana Jones, like not call her Indiana Jones. They had Laura Croft. They blew that. I mean, you could have a different type of spiritual fighter. I mean, they have many of them over the years. Mm-hmm. So just do something different, Ghostbusters was fine the way it was, those first two movies. Leave it and do something else. That's just my 2 cents. Again, I'm in the minority here.
Right.
Because the box office proved that people still love those Ghostbusters. But I'm a sucker for the originals. I will stay with those. I'll probably watch this new one because my wife wants to see it. She loved probably just as much as you did Afterlife.
Right.
I'm fine with the first two Ghostbusters. I don't need any more.
Does anyone ever need more Ghostbusters? I think there's so many directions you can go with Ghostbusters with this concept of afterlife and fighting the afterlife. So to me, to see more is fun. I mean, and again, the original Ghostbusters is lightning in the bottle, and you're never going to top it. And it's, but if you know that it's never going to be topped, and just hope for a good movie.
But you go to the well too many times, though. It okay. I agree that Afterlife was a step up from the 2016 garbage. It's a step up from the animated stuff. It's just, to me, it wasn't necessary.
Well, I mean, the first couple seasons of the real Ghostbusters TV show was excellent.
I couldn't get into it. But these are just my opinions.
Yeah.
Your opinions aren't wrong either.
No. And again, I don't know. It's so cool, and there's just so much to it. And again, it's written so smart. Dan Aykroyd's family, he comes from a legacy of ghost hunters. Mm-hmm. Literally, his father has a book out that came out in 2010 called The History of Ghosts that he wrote a foreword to, and I've read it, and it's absolutely fascinating. It's literally chronicling the history of paranormal research. Nice. from medieval times all the way to modern, including his family stuff. And when you read it, you can really tell that Dan Aykroyd brought all of this folklore and legend and terminology into, and science to the Ghostbusters, and beautifully applied it, Mm-hmm. And then you add, a Harold Ramis with his brilliance in dialogue and comedic timing, and it meshed together. It's just, oh my God. Mm-hmm. It's through all the other movies too. I mean, again, Ghostbusters is a lightning in the bottle movie. It's a once in a life. It's like, it's like The Wizard of Oz. It's like Back to the Future. It's one of those movies that's just right moment, right time, right everything. It will always be there. So it just
just the fact that we're sitting here debating Ghostbusters 40 years later shows you how impactful the movie is. And we're not even talking about the lunch boxes, the merch, the food tie-ins. The literally Stay Puft marshmallows, and the Slimer cereals, the Slimer juices. I mean, it's such a huge legacy. I think there were Ghostbuster cereals. I mean, it was
Ghostbusters massive. I mean, the toys. I mean,
the toys. Yeah, like, I did have a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man figure.
Yeah, and you know what? I had a toy proton pack, and guess what? My son has a toy proton pack that he still plays with to this day.
Nice.
Of one of the newer ones that just came out from Spirit. I mean, it's timeless. And then on top of that, you also have like the charity communities.
Yes.
Like there's the Ghostbusters. I mean, like Our closest affiliate is, I think it's the Hudson Valley Ghostbusters. And like these groups are incredible. Like I want to join one. Like they make props and costumes,
Yeah, they do that with Star Wars too. You can dress up as your favorite characters.
Yeah, and you can go on websites and build these things to scale. And then these guys will go around and do charity events to raise money for sick kids and stuff like that. And it's all under the no ghost emblem, man. It's so cool.
Yeah,
and to see what fans can do, especially these, and you see the like the flight suits they wear. You find them all from the regular beige ones that we see in the original Ghostbusters, the dark navy ones we only see for a couple minutes in Ghostbusters 2, all the way to the colors that they had in the real Ghostbusters TV show.
Right.
And even proton packs colored to look like the real Ghostbusters cartoon show. The cultural impact of the love for this movie and this franchise, and
yes,
it's just absolutely incredible.
Oh yeah, and it's a legacy they'll just keep going, and I'm sure they're going to release some sort of big box set with all of the movies. They might even bring like a remastered TV series set too. I'm sure they're going to do something big because it's 40 years this year. So.
Yeah. You would hope so.
Well, the new movie coming out pretty soon, and
when you think of Ghostbusters, as far as scenes in the movie, like what sticks out for you most? Is it the comedy? Is it the whole package? Is it the
whole package?
Because
if you ask me to pick like one specific thing, Bill Murray's quips throughout him complaining and just the sarcasm. I mean, there's so many different lines, and the Zool and the gatekeeper, the keymaster. There's so many things. A painting that comes to life.
Yeah,
so many memorable things. It's hard to the Scoleri brothers.
The Scoleri, Ghostbusters too.
Harris Yulin, the late great Harris Yulin was a lot of fun in that little part. But yeah, Ghostbusters 1 and 2. All of my memories of Ghostbusters, my favorite memories come from those first two movies.
Right, the tributes to Ghostbusters, like to John Belushi. Slimer is a tribute to John Belushi.
I didn't know that.
Yes, he is. If you look at him, he kind of has this vague resemblance to John Belushi. And,
I didn't get that.
And when they first encounter him and he's downing the bottle of Jack Daniels,
he did like his Jack Daniels. I remember reading that.
Well, I mean, there's the famous scene in Animal House where
I think he liked it in real life too.
Yeah, he did. Well, speaking of John Belushi, he was Peter Venkman. He was supposed to be Peter Venkman, and then he unfortunately passed away. And
remember he was supposed to be up for that role.
And Bill Murray stepped in, and then John Candy was supposed to be Louis Tully.
Yeah,
and
I remember reading that.
And he passed on it because he didn't think he could do it justice. And then we got the brilliant performance by Rick Moranis, which is just to this day so funny.
Oh, I know.
And even in Ghostbusters Afterlife, the Chomper ghost that the kids first, that's a tribute to John Candy. Mm-hmm. You can see it in the face. You can kind of see that John Candy resemblance in the face of the ghost. So I mean, so they're always putting little tributes and stuff like that. It's such a wonderful movie and a wonderful world that they created that you just can't get enough of. And who wouldn't want to fight 100-foot marshmallow man in the middle of New York?
That'd be one hell of a s'more after that. Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, my favorite stops in 1989. I'm in the minority. Everyone, I know Adam loves all of the Ghostbusters except for the female ones, and I kind of I wish I could have gotten that time back. Ghostbusters, quite the legacy. Give us your feedback. Do you like all of the Ghostbusters, or are you a curmudgeon like me and just like 1 and 2, the originals? Just comment, text us, reach out to us through social media, comment on our YouTube channel. Let us know what you think about the Ghostbusters.